Yo, what is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Film School Experience podcast. It's really good to see you all and have you here for today's show because we have a very special one coming to you from the international student perspective. So if you are one of those people trying to come to the U.S. to go to school or have done that or are on that journey right now from overseas, this one is for you. I'm so excited because I have Julia, who I went to USC with, and she has her BA and MFA from USC. So you get to hear the perspective of what it's like to be an international student, not one time, but two times at the same school. So also, fair warning, just want to let you know, I recorded this week's episode in the back of my car. So you're going to hear some of the elements. So I just want to let you know, but regardless, honestly, this episode is incredible. And if you're an international student, this is one you definitely want to hear. So let's just jump right into it, and I will see you on the other side. Okay, and camera is rolling.
Sound speed.
This is the Film School Experience.
Take one apple and action.
Thank you, Julia, for doing this. I'm excited for another episode, and it's going to be really cool to hear your insights on the Film School Experience.
Okay, well, thank you for having me. This is very exciting. My name is Julia. I am from Colombia. I went to USC for my undergrad, and I graduated in 2017 or 18. I can't remember at this point. And then I went back for film and TV production for my master's, and I graduated May 2023. And my undergrad was in animation and digital arts.
Wow, you're so well-rounded with your skills, and that's something that I've always admired about you, is that you're into animation, and we talk about this all the time. And it's so cool that you have that background as well as a film background. So with that in mind, was going to film school, I guess we'll talk about after even before your bachelor's. Was that something like a goal of yours? Did you always want to study filmmaking or storytelling? Tell us more about that.
I didn't even know what I wanted to do after high school. I remember sixth grade, I was thinking oh, it will come to me what I want to do. And then it kind of never came. But one of my friends pointed out, oh, well, you really like, cartoons and animation and anime and drawing. So I started thinking about that. And my sister was already living in the US. So I just wanted to learn more about it. And that's kind of how I got into filmmaking. I came to the US in 2011. And I went to the Art Institute for a little while. And that was kind of like a crash course on drawing skills and what animation was. I realized that I actually, if I wanted to go to an accredited school, I needed a portfolio. And so I ended up leaving the Art Institute, going to community college for a little bit just to build up my skills and put together a portfolio and then apply to art school for animation. And that's through my years doing the undergrad is how I came to learn more about filmmaking and storytelling, and I really got into it. So that's kind of how I ended up where I am now, in a way. Yeah, it wasn't a straight path or something that I was like, oh, I want to do this, or I've been wanting to do this since I was 5. I've always liked a lot of things, so it was kind of like me exploring what was out there in the world.
Oh, that's really, really cool to know that you went to community college and then you went to USC. So which kind of like talks into the next question, but what was that process like? Because I know going straight from high school to USC or any school, you have to have like test scores, and then you have to have some sort of application you have to fill out. So what was it transferring to USC?
Yeah, it was... I actually applied twice, if I remember correctly, because the first time I applied to multiple film schools that had an animation program, I only got into one school and I got rejected from, I think I applied to 5 or 6 and I only got into one and got rejected from the other ones. So I gave myself another year to apply. And I feel like that really helped because that second year I was able to get into more schools. I got a couple of scholarship offers for some of them. And then I eventually got into an acceptance letter from USC. And the reason why I decided to go to that one was because, one, it was closer to my sister. And two, it had other classes that I was interested in. Like I was telling you, I really like exploring other areas, and I felt like USC was going to be able to give me not only like art classes or film classes, but also humanities and other things that I wanted to explore and take. Um, as far as the academic, I had really good scores back in Colombia. But then again, I had to take, as an international student, I had to take the SAT and ACT here because the test, my national test, didn't really work for USC here. I had to basically take a test as if I was someone from the US. So I had to take the SAT and the ACT, and thank God I still remembered everything because it had been already like a couple of years out of high school, and I hadn't been taking any math classes or anything at all. So, but I remembered enough that I was able to get good test scores and get into the school and then apply with a good enough portfolio that got me into the animation program.
Wow, what a process. And, it's something that I never think about because I'm not an international student. All of the processes and steps it takes just to get an application in the door of whatever school you want to go to. So that's really cool that, one, you remembered all of those subjects from high school for the ACT and the SAT, which I've never taken, which is so funny to think. But you passed and you made it in, so that's really awesome. Now, after you graduated from USC with your bachelor's in animation, what was like the sign for you to be like, oh shoot, I want to go into film, and like, what's the MFA program like? How did you learn about that as you were in the animation school?
Yeah, so I first heard about the film program, the SCA film, specifically production program, when I was going there for animation, and everything was a little bit divided. So I would hear about it, but I didn't specifically know what it was or what classes they were taking. I did take one cinematography class in undergrad, but I feel like I had no idea what I was doing. It was actually really funny because I had to be the cinematographer for one of those classes, and I did not understand like half of what was going on. But the reason why I decided to go back to pursue a master's degree was primarily so that I could apply for my O visa, which is the artist visa, if you want to work in the United States. So when I finished my undergrad, I unfortunately didn't have enough work, like an enough like a quantity of work or like a body of work that would allow me to get a work visa as an artist in the US. So what was recommended to me, also it was during a political time that was not the best and that didn't help. And the positions that I was getting were production assistant, and so it was impossible for the company that I was in to sponsor me because you can't really sponsor a production assistant position because technically anybody could do that position, or that's how the government would see it. So it has to be something more specific and, let's say, at a higher professional level. And so that was one of the main reasons I decided to go back to school, was so that I could work on more projects and build up a big enough portfolio for to get an artist visa. And so that was one of the main reasons why. That was honestly like 95% of why I did it. So yeah, that's how I ended up deciding to apply for film school again. And I only applied to two places, I think. I applied to USC for film school, and then I applied to Cal Arts for their experimental animation master's program, because I was looking into animation, but there weren't enough schools that had like an animation grad program that I was kind of like looking for. It was mostly I would have to have done an undergrad again, and that didn't really help me at all. So, yeah.
That's really cool. And I love that, like, again, when I think of international students, I don't understand at all what the process is and what that looks like to stay in the country after graduating. So that's really cool that that was the motivation. I think a lot of people go into the master program or any master program. Really, it's kind of like it's a trade-off. it's for something. Like for me, for example, I went to USC only to want to get my master's, but it was just so that I could teach college level, because you have to have a master's degree if you want to be a college professor. So it was just an exchange. So I totally get it. And again, like, you're not the only one, and I'm not the only one that use the master's or a master's program to do that. So that's actually really, really neat.
That's cool. I didn't know you needed a master's to be able to teach. That's crazy. Cool.
Yeah. So if you wanted to teach, you could totally do that now. You have the ability. So obviously, going into any film school, you need to go through the application process. You have to submit some bodies of work. Was that easy for you coming from the world of animation? Like, what was it like submitting your work and just going through the application process for the MFA program?
Yeah, I actually almost missed the deadline to apply. I was getting my hair done. I was getting my hair done and I had my computer on my lap and I was writing the essays to apply and putting everything together. And I applied the day before at around like 6 p.m. I remember after I finished my hair, I went to a coffee shop right across the street and I finished typing the personal statement. And honestly, as an international student being in the US, it's a big challenge. So I try to like basically pour all my experiences that I've had into that essay, and I think that really helped. I even cried like writing it. So it was like a therapy session writing that artist statement. And the body of work that I submitted was my thesis that I did for my undergrad. So it was an animated film, which I didn't know if it was going to help me or not because I knew that I was applying for a live action program. So I was kind of worried because I didn't know if being already a USC alum would help me or if it would actually not help me, because I didn't know. You start overthinking all these things, and all I kept thinking about was, oh, are they going to want someone that has not come to USC and want to give them an opportunity to come to USC, or because I came to USC, they'll think she has a better understanding of the program, so it's a plus. So I was kind of like in between and didn't know what they would be thinking, but I still applied. And I was lucky enough and I got it.
That's so cool. And I can't believe that you turned in your application with such short amount of time, because I literally took 6 months to perfect every piece of work that I had to turn in for the application process.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I mean, I got rejected for my undergrad, so I guess,
No, I mean, I think you're phenomenal. That just goes to show how amazing you are, honestly. Because it's a question that everyone will always have, and it's something that I still ask myself to this day from time to time, is like, for the application process at USC specifically, like what does the school look for in those applications? And I thought I had an answer of like, oh, just be authentic with yourself and like really be vulnerable. And that's what I've always told people. But maybe that's not. I don't know what it is, and I'm sure maybe you don't. I don't know.
Yeah, I also think it's whoever might be reading your application. It's kind of also how you get a job in the film industry. It depends on who's at the other end of I guess that phone call or email or application in this case, and if that person is able to connect on some level to what you wrote. So you can do all the right things and still get someone that for some reason doesn't understand your experience or connect to what you're submitting, and they'll pass. And so that's why you should never take something personal or rejections personal. So that's kind of the other end of that sword, that you never know who's going to be reading your application. And I think the person that I got, because she became my mentor, Midge Costin, she was my mentor for the first year, and she's a sound professor at USC. She's great. I think after meeting her, it made sense why she liked my interview and my application. So yeah, you never know.
Okay, something that I forgot, and you probably forgot too, but Midge was my person as well. She was my mentor as well. That is crazy.
There you go.
So for all you who are listening, maybe the person that reads your application will enjoy a 24-hour turnaround for your application or a 6-month one like mine.
There you go. There's no right answer is the whole point. Just do your best.
Exactly. And that's so cool. So now you've got accepted into USC, and what did your living situation look like, and what was your work life like? I know because we're good friends and we graduated together. I know that you worked on campus a lot. So how did you balance work life, project life, school life, and then just life outside of that? What did that look like for you?
Yeah, I would say I probably didn't have it as hard as somebody that had a part-time job or had a full-time job before going to USC, just because I couldn't have a job. So there you go. My only work opportunities were like on campus. So student assistant positions or work at a I didn't do this, but like for international students, for example, working at the library or any job that you can get on campus is allowed. But outside of that, you're technically not supposed to work unless you have an internship and you can prove that um, there's some paperwork involved. Let's say that. So it was at the beginning. It was hard for me on a different level, just because on a career, let's say on a career level or path, I didn't necessarily want to be there. I wanted to be somewhere else. And just because of my situation, it was hard to adjust to school again when I didn't necessarily felt like I wanted to go back to school. I decided to go back to school more out of necessity for a specific purpose. So it was kind of hard to adjust going back because I wasn't ready to do that. But I think, oh, and also it was during the pandemic, so it wasn't Zoom. I think that was like weirdly enough, that was like a good transition for me, just because since I had finished only 2 years ago, I didn't necessarily want to go back to campus so soon. And just meeting people online, I felt like our cohort was really good at trying to stay in touch and get to know each other, just because we were trying to connect in some way because we were not in person. So I think that really helped. And so when we went back to in person, I looked for opportunities to work on campus, and so I did student assistant positions, and I would try to see which ones would have like an award attached to them. So basically, some of them you do get paid hourly, but then they also come with an award. Like, okay, okay, they came with an award, which were either $1,000 award, 2,000, some of them even up to 5,000, depending on the class and the amount of work you had to do. So that, because USC is very expensive and you go into debt. So I would try to look for those and put them within my schedule in a way that it would work with also the classes that I had to take. And I had to be mindful of, okay, maybe I'll give up this class so that I can take this position to work, and then I'll get this other class that I really, really like. So it was kind of like a balancing act to do that, and also working on school projects at the same time. It's like going to school, it's a full-time job, except you're not getting paid for being full-time.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah. So, that's kind of like my answer to that question. Yeah.
No, that's great. That's great. And I love that you brought up the prices, to be specific, like the award money. And you can help me remember this because I've only been a student assistant twice at my time at USC. And the reward money that you get is either 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, up to 5,000, depending on which jobs are available. And depending on that job that is available, there's certain levels of responsibilities that that job requires, which if it's more responsibility, it's more pay. And that $5,000 or that $1,000 to $5,000 is money that isn't directly in your pocket, but it goes towards your tuition, right?
It does go towards your tuition. So if you, for some reason, well, the way it would go in your pocket is if you've already paid your semester, they reimburse you that amount. But some of them go directly into your tuition billing. So instead of seeing basically you would see maybe like $1,000 or $2,000 less of what it would be usually. Another position that if you're thinking of going to film school, I would suggest, if your school has it, USC has it, is TA positions. That's teaching assistant positions. And those positions come with a lot more benefits. They're obviously not perfect, and you're still going to have a lot of responsibilities. But I was able to get a TA position, a teaching assistant position, which is different from student assistant. I don't know if I can tell what yeah, basically you have different responsibilities. And that one, I was able to get one semester basically for free, because that position covered everything, and I would still get paid monthly. But it is a lot more work, and you will be leading a discussion section most likely, depending on the class. So you have to deal with students one-on-one and as a group, and you'll also have to grade. So I had to learn how to grade papers and projects. So that was interesting, but I felt like it was a good experience overall as a person to learn. But if your school has that, or if you end up going to USC, I would highly encourage trying to get that.
That's cool. And then also to clear it up, because I don't think that we specific. You get that reward money for that job, and then also you get paid hourly too, right? So like you get a check, or is that
For SA or for TA?
Oh gosh, there's a difference.
There's a difference, yeah.
Okay.
So for student assistant positions, you get paid hourly. For teaching assistant positions, you get paid monthly, but it's a larger amount. Yeah.
Okay, see, I didn't even know that. So I learned something new.
Yay.
Awesome. So leads us to the next one. Out of all the classes that you took at USC, like how do you think those classes influence you as a filmmaker?
Yeah. So one thing that doing this program really helped me with, and I'm very thankful for, despite of everything else in this journey that I'm not super happy with. But one of the things that I wasn't expecting to find is a path that I really liked, and that was editing. And so I'm really grateful for the fact that I actually decided to do the program, because otherwise I wouldn't have found it. And that leads me to the class. One of the classes that USC offers, it's 547, if you want to know the code of the class, CTPR 547. And that is documentary production. And it's basically like you're thrown into it. It's like a boot camp. And I was an editor for one of the films. I had a co-editor. And that class really helped me find out that I really enjoy that process of editing. And that was one of the things that I would not get tired of. So that class is still with me in everything that I do, every job that I've had. It really helps me not only for the technical aspects of editing, but also the creative process of editing. So that's one of the classes that I really, really enjoyed. You want to talk about the undergrad class?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, let's talk about the undergrad class. I'm glad you reminded me. So yeah,
Yes.
talk about it.
And then there was one undergrad class, which it's been too long, so I cannot remember the name. And the professor, unfortunately, is not there anymore. So I think it still exists, but it's taught by somebody else. And it was a very practical class on like how to build your, I don't want to say brand, but how to build your portfolio and how to basically go out there in the workforce and show what you're gonna be trying to apply for. So she made us do a portfolio website. That was a requirement for the class. That was an assignment. And then she also made us find someone within the industry that we liked, message them, like cold email, cold message, find them, and then ask them if they were willing to be interviewed, and then do an interview with them. So I felt like that really helped. I don't know if everybody in my class, but it at least helped me get out of my shell and not be afraid of cold emailing or I don't cold call, but cold emailing or cold messaging on LinkedIn or Instagram. And that's something that up to this day I use, and I'm not afraid to just reach out to somebody that I think their work is cool or that I want to meet and have a coffee with. Even though they might not reply, I just send the message, and I've been doing that for the past 5-6 years, and I've met a lot of people that way. So it was a really great class. Yeah.
Wow, it sounds like you learned a lot, and you, like you just said, you carry all of those learnings with you, and I think that's so cool. And one of the things that I've always known about you, Julia, since we met and as we've now gone through the program, you've always found a way to work with amazing collaborators and work on projects that mean a lot to you and I think are awesome. So, like, what is your, I don't want to say your secret, but what's your process in terms of finding collaborators that you are wanting to work with and that you value what they have to bring to whatever story it is?
Yeah, I think you're gonna get this answer a lot, and it's like, oh, just find good people or your friends. But it is 100% true. So, whoever you feel like you can have an honest, open conversation with, or that you don't need to be 100% like the same things or see the world the same way. But if you feel like somebody um, has that same, like, maybe emotion, I don't know how to say that.
I would just say, like, maybe on the same wavelength or the same
Exactly,
thought
like in the
process of,
same
right?
wavelength, and you share maybe a similar vision when it comes to a specific film or a specific project, then that's the people you want to work with. And honestly, it's not only about that. The most important thing is that you can get along with them and be honest with them and communicate with them in an honest and open way, without being disrespectful, and you can just have a honest conversation when things are not going well. I feel like those are going to be your best collaborators. And I would suggest also learning how to communicate with different people, because you are not always going to be working with the people of your choice, or even if it's your friend, it can get tricky because you have a friendship. But you also have to figure out, basically you have to be the bigger person if you want to work with them and continue working with them, and learn how to talk to them and learn how to carry that work relationship, and know that sometimes, even though you're really good friends and you get along, you won't be able to work with that person for either communication reasons or the way that you guys, because work relationships and friendships are very different. So sometimes it will carry that if you're really good friends, you're able to work together, but sometimes it won't work that way, and that's totally okay too. Yeah.
That's so cool. And I love that you're like drawing the line, because there is a clear line between a collaborator and a friend. And of course, you can have them both, but sometimes they don't coexist together,
Yes.
you know? But like I said, I've always admired everything that you've worked on. And I literally have, even before this podcast, I've always wondered, like, how does Julia find herself in all of these really cool projects? So that's cool to hear a little bit of the science behind it.
Thank you. Sometimes I just insert myself in the project. I just ask people like, "Oh, what are you doing? Oh, can I do this for you?" And they're like, "Sure." And I'm like, "Okay."
Wow. So that's that whole, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, that whole undergrad experience, of just like going out and just asking and like putting yourself out there.
Probably, yeah.
No, that's amazing. So I'm wondering from the classes that you took, how credible are the professors that you had? And of that credibility in the classes you took, like, do you think what they taught you, or are you using that now that you've graduated? Like, how?
Yeah, I think that's, I don't know, it's kind of like a tricky question.
I know, I'm sorry.
You're good. There's certainly some professors that I felt I connected to more and were really helpful in guiding me career-wise and also like creatively. So one of them was from the class I was mentioning about. His name is Jeremy Deneau, and he was kind of our technical editor. So he would help us with anything in Avid that was tech related. But I felt like I also learned a lot of creative, like a lot of creative knowledge from him, because he's also an editor. And he was always there. I feel like you want people that you feel are in your corner, that when you reach out to them or when you ask for help or you want to learn more things, they're willing to put in the time to, give you advice and talk to you about things that you both enjoy and that you're learning. And he was one of those people. And then another person that I really connected with was Yvette Amirian, and she wasn't even my professor. I was her SA for one semester, and she's an editor, and she teaches an undergrad class. But even to this day, whenever I reach out to her, she knows about the projects that I'm working on, and she was really key in helping us with the documentary that we did. Like, she gave us advice out of her working hours, also because she was friends with the director, and that that comes to show that when a professor cares, they care. So not every professor will be your people, to put it that way, but you will find the professors that will be like your people and your friends and your mentors, and you will connect with, that will help you. And it might not be 10, it's probably like one or two, maybe three, but that was kind of my experience. And for sure, we need more diversity in the faculty, and not only you know gender and like race and age and stuff, but you learn from everyone. So you take your lessons, even if it's from professors that you don't really connect with. You learn what you like and you learn what you don't like. So it's also how you see it. And there's also other people out there in the world that can become your professors in a way, or your mentors. So I would encourage you to go seek them out and reach out to them. Yeah.
I love that answer. That was amazing. Like the diversity thing really struck a chord with me, and obviously, I think we can never not have enough diversity. But I love how you like really specified it as like outside of like the traditional things, quote unquote, that we see as diversity, whether that be like age, sex, race, but really in like knowledge and like wisdom that professors and people of in mentorship can offer to you, because I still carry with me lessons that I learned from my community college, from like my math professor. And like has what I'm doing now has nothing to do with math, but like just the lessons that they taught me, the way to approach life, to approach every quote unquote problem, have really stuck with me. So I think that's so cool that you understand the value in that. And I also second that if you are looking for knowledge in your certain area and lane, whatever you want to do, whatever that is, don't be afraid to like open up to other people with other life experiences, because you never know how someone else's roadmap can help yours.
Yeah, absolutely. You learn so much from so many people, and even outside of, maybe if oh, I want to be a producer, I want to be a director, I would highly encourage reaching out to other people that are not within that specific department that you want to work in, because what I found out there is that, yeah, everybody kind of knows how to make a movie, but there's so much division in, like, even people that are working in the industry in the same studio. They don't even know what another department does, and that's crazy to me, because I'm like, they're right there, just talk to them and ask them what their process is. So I would highly encourage you to even reach out outside of your discipline, because that will make you such a well-rounded collaborator, because then you'll understand what it takes for them to get something done, and then you'll understand what you're asking of them when you're asking that, if that makes sense.
No, it totally does. The way I've always viewed it, and I always put this one word on so many things in life, it's perspective. It's just like getting someone else's input on how they view your situation or how they view their situation. And then like, how do you take that information and just apply it to yourself? Because, you can get so much wealth and knowledge from so many other people outside of cinematographers, outside of just directors. You'd be surprised. So amazing. All right, we are in 2023, and now that you and I are both graduated, it's crazy. We're only, how many months now? 3 months?
I think
It's
like
been
3 months.
around 3 months. We'll say that. So what do you think that going to film school to get your MFA in particular was necessary to do the things that you are trying to move forward to do now? Like, could have you made it to this point in your life in terms of like looking for work without all of the 3 years of knowledge and experience and money that you spent?
This is gonna be a long answer, so I'm so sorry in advance. Now that the other ones have not been long, I talk a lot. Sorry. But yes and no, which is not the answer you want, but it's okay. So, as an international student, that I would say, as if you're an international student and you want to be in the US, I would say yes. Being in a school, you absolutely need to be in a school. It's not like you can come here and not be in a school. So in that regards, I would say yes, it is necessary and it is helpful, just because being in film school will give you a couple of advantages. As an international student, there's a lot of hard stuff you're going to have to go through and BS, but it will give you a lot of advantages when it comes to trying to create multiple bodies of work, be involved in many projects that you can put towards your visa application, meeting people that can help you with your visa application. And also, after you're done with your program, you will get a year to work in the US. And that would be really helpful if you're lucky, because this is one of those things that are out of your control. If you get a company that will sponsor you, it will be really helpful if in getting that work visa quicker. So as an international student, I would say it's really hard work and it's really hard being away from home. But if you're if you want to get into film, that's one of the routes. And just take into the consideration that it's not guaranteed that you'll be able to stay, and you might have to do what I did, which is going back to pursue an MFA. But that's also based on your financial situation. Like, I am in debt right now, just to be 100% honest. But so, some people have the money to do it and they're not in debt. Some people get in debt like me, which you will ask yourself, is this really worth it? And some people go back to their home country. So it's based on your situation, but I would say if you want to pursue a career in the United States, it is helpful. It is helpful to be enrolled in school and go to film school. Now, as a U.S. citizen, I would say that one is up to you, because you can also just film. And filmmaking, it's not a career like medicine where they're going to ask for your diploma or you're going to ask for like a certification being like, can you actually do this? They're just going to ask if you have the skills to do it, but they're not going to ask for a school diploma. So you can also go the route of, and I feel like parents will hate me, but you can also not go to school and basically just try to get out there on the workforce, meet people, start as a PA, see what you like, and then go from there and meet as many people as you like. Because you'll probably hear this 1,000 times in this business, it's also about the people that you meet and that you know. And it's true, because they'll get to know you, they'll know your skills, and they'll know what type of person you are at work, or you'll jive with some people and you'll become friends and they'll become your mentors, or mentor and friend, in general. And they'll get to know you, they'll get to know your values, they'll get to know that you are potentially a good worker, that they can refer you and trust that you're going to do a good job. And that's how you'll probably get a job. You can also, I've also heard of people sending applications and getting a job, but you have to put your personality out there a little bit so that they get to know who you are. So in that case, as a U.S. citizen, you don't necessarily need to go to film school. But if that's something that you want to do, that's not bad either, because you're going to meet a lot of people and a lot of collaborators there that it's going to make it worth it and worth the experience. So it's honestly up to you what you want to do. And then, just to make this answer longer, because I want to make sure my international people are fine, there's also another way And this will probably, honestly, I feel like everything's gonna take 1,000 years, so it doesn't matter at this point. But if coming to the US is not an option, or if it's something you don't want to do, but then you eventually want to end up working here, maybe, the other route you can take is wherever you're from, your home country, take a look at what programs, first of all, take a look at what companies that are related to film or that work within film or the film industry in your country are there, like what's available to you. Um, Ask if they need you to have some sort of, oh, this is a tricky one. I would suggest you go to school because I think when you apply for a work visa, you might need to show that you've gone to school. So that one is one that I have to do a little bit more research on, but I'm not sure if you once you become a professional, if that's something they're gonna look into. Because what I'm gonna suggest is if you don't want to come to the US or that's not an option, what you can do is do some research about what film companies are in your home country. Ask if they want you to have a degree or not. I would start building your body of work with those companies. And if it's a company that has ties with some studios in the US, that's even better. I know that there's a lot of subcontracting that studios in the United States do with studios outside of the US. So I would look into those. And once you advance in your career and you become a professional in whatever it is that you want to do, that is also a way for you to be hired by a company either in Canada or in the US directly as that. But that will also take a certain amount of years because you have to get to that level. So there's really not one way, but that's another way that I've learned by talking to people and getting to know people that have ended up working here in the US. So, yeah.
That was good. Honestly, it was so great. That's a question that will always happen or always be around until the end of time. Like, do you need to go to film school or not? And it's so cool to hear the perspective of an international student, because again, if you somehow missed it, you're the first international student who alumni who I've interviewed on here. So it's so refreshing to hear the many steps of what an international student may or may not have to do, but ultimately it's the options that you have as an international student, whether to come to the United States to go to school or whether to stay in your home country and find avenues and work to where you have value in that company that you work in and then also within yourself so that you can start to hopefully, plug yourself into these American projects and films. Because I do know I listened to a podcast of a Colombian cinematographer, and she went to school in Colombia and made the jump to filmmaking with, sorry, car. All right. But she made the jump into filmmaking from Colombia. So, again, there's just so many options. And I'm so happy that you're able to shed some light on that because, again, it's not my area of expertise at all.
Yeah, and it's honestly not, one path, and it doesn't matter where you're from. It's not like even US citizens or US nationals, they all have different, like very different stories of how they got to where they are. So much that it kind of becomes annoying at one point because there's no real path. But I would say just it can be very discouraging at times. So I would also say don't drive yourself crazy trying to make the perfect plan because that's most likely not going to happen. And it's still your life, and you don't want to be so, you know, trapped in a room of how you want things to be because then you will end up not enjoying your journey. As sappy or whatever that might sound, it's true because I felt at one point that I had to choose one option and I would drive myself crazy thinking which one is the right one and which one is going to get me my visa. And it's so hard to know. You just got to pick something and then just trust it and go with it. Yeah.
No, I love that. And I kind of want to get on that whole sappy feels of that answer of yours because it's great. Like if you think you have a perfect plan, something is going to go wrong. And I don't think that it should be perfect. I think that you have to be open to options, because if you have an idea of things being perfect and then one thing goes off, like you didn't anticipate that, you thought that this one path was the one way. So just be open to things and just know that there are options, and there are wonderful people like Julia who you can reach out to, because her Instagram's in the show notes. And you can reach out to me. And I'm sure you just have a huge supporting cast of people. And if you don't, I'm telling you, there are people out there that are rooting for you, and I hope that you know that we are one of them.
Yeah, feel free to reach out. More than happy to answer any questions you have.
Amazing. So leads me to the last question of the podcast, which is kind of along the lines of what we just talked about. But now that you're graduated, what are some good practices, some good, I don't know, maybe study habits or not, whether that's like watching particular shows that you can see yourself editing or working on, even animation stuff. What are some things that you're doing, whether that be like in your head thinking as you're watching, as you're consuming, or that you're physically doing, like drawing every day? Are you still doing some of those practices? And what can you share with the audience who is either still in film school, like how can they adapt those practices? Or if you're someone who doesn't want to go the film school route, or someone who is on the fence, but you're interested in whatever you're doing, like how can you, or what are you doing that you could share with us all that maybe I can pick up myself and be better at?
Even if you go to school, your school will not give you everything that you need. So you will always, this both applied for my undergrad and grad, you will always have to find things outside of school to keep growing as a person and in your career. If you know exactly what you want to do, I would say immerse yourself in that world, with the hint of meet people from other disciplines, but yes. Um, and honestly, one of the things that has helped me the most is finding events that brings people together, either editors together or within the animation community, that I can go to. When I was in my undergrad, I went to a lot of animation conventions. There's one that's called CTNX that started, I can't remember when, but I went 2 years and I met one of the recruiters at Nickelodeon, and that's how I was able to get my internship there. When I was going through my undergrad, I found about this animation convention. It was called CTNX, and I was able to meet a recruiter there from Nickelodeon, and that's how I was able to get my internship. It sounds easy. I went to that expo at least 3 times, and I applied to Nickelodeon multiple times and got rejected multiple times. So it wasn't my first time. I just happened to meet with her, and that was kind of like my pre-interview before an interview. So that really helped. So I would suggest finding different conventions or workshops that people that are in the career that you would like to have, or are in the same discipline that you want to get into. Those people like get together. I would suggest trying to get into those. And there's, thanks to a friend of mine at school, Avo. Avo. I found about it. It's kind of like I think it happens every Thursday at the end of the month, and I have to look the name for this one too. But editors gather, and there's presentations from editors and assistant editors that are working at the moment. So it's really nice because you get to hear them talk about their work, and then you can talk to them afterwards if you stay a little longer and meet them and know what they do. And that's how I was able to find one of my mentors, or someone that I consider my mentor in editing. So I would suggest just kind of like research what's out there, ask friends, ask the people you work with, because there's literally so many things, especially if you're in LA. There's so many things and so many events that happen that will help you meet like-minded people and people that you like, and that are willing to teach you. So that's one of the things that I've done ever since my undergrad, and I keep doing them. Also, remember to take breaks. It's okay if you don't go to every event. That's totally fine. Like, that's something that at one point I was like, okay, I'm like, yeah, maybe I would have met X or Y, but I need a break. I need a mental break as well. So just remember to take care of yourself. Like, you don't have to go out there and meet 1,000 people every weekend. But yeah, I would suggest that if you have any film in a film festival, go to those. Those are really fun, and you meet other people that are making films, and you get to see their work. So I would say those are some of the things that I've kept doing. Drawing, I really got into drawing during the pandemic, and I really want to do that again. So I'll probably be trying to do a lot more of that now that I have a little bit more time. Um, I could go on. This list is long.
No, that's fine. That's fine. As long as you want it or as short as you want it.
Yeah. Also, career wise, LinkedIn has been so helpful. I found so many people on LinkedIn in the film industry that have. That's also another way I got an internship that I did this summer at Pixar. I found a recruiter and then I emailed her, and I didn't know if she was gonna see my application, but then she got back to me. So I cold email her. I had never met her in my life. So that was like, call it luck or whatever. Maybe that was the right person on the other side of the call that liked what I had to, present about myself. And I was very honest on my cover letter. So LinkedIn has been a really good resource, both for knowing who's working where and also for there's like it will show you what gigs are out there and what you can apply to. And I've applied to jobs through there that I haven't heard back from, but it's a resource that you can use. And then as for life advice, as for life best practices, you also need to have a balance. So I try to work out or go on a walk, meet with my friends, have things outside of film that are not just film related that I can enjoy. So I would suggest only doing that because, I feel like we grew up in this culture where it's like you have to work really, really hard all the time. And then I don't want to be 60 and look back on my life and be like, I didn't enjoy anything. I've just been working. And yeah, maybe, I don't know, maybe that will be not to my advantage because I will not get X or Y thing, but life is also not your career. So you also need to, have some balance and some perspective on life is also the relationships that you make with your friends and like the people you meet and the good moments that you have. So again, sappy, I'm a very sappy person. But that's it. Those are my best practices. Yeah.
That was amazing. And it was a lot, but it was so good. Like, it's a full breadth of things that people can take and hopefully learn from and like use that as fuel if you're wondering what you should be doing, what you could be doing if you're in film school, transitioning out, if you're going into film school, if you're not in film school. You've given a lot of resources for people to find their path and carve their path. So thank you for that. And also just want to thank you so much for taking the time to sit in the back of my car outside in the elements, doing the whole LA thing and doing a podcast out here. I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. Again, this is the most LA thing we've done.
It is. Thank you, Julia.
Good luck, you guys.
And just like that, we have made it through this week's podcast. I hope that you learned a lot from Julia. She has such a wealth of knowledge, as you just heard, and it's really cool that she's able to share so much with us today. So for all of you who are overseas, I hope that answers a lot of those questions that you have. And if you have more, please feel free to reach out to Julia over Instagram. Like she said, she's more than happy to take your questions, and she's so sweet, so awesome, and so talented. So be on the lookout for her because she's going to go places. She's going to do amazing things. And I know for myself, I will be there for the ride, and I hope that you will be as well. So again, thanks so much for listening to this week's podcast, and I'll see you next week for another episode of the Film School Experience podcast.